welcome to my YouTube channel and blog. I'm Jenny Hall. Today I bring you number 3 in the series of multi-step stamping. I still always have to say that really slow because my tongue gets tied whenever I say it. But if you haven't watched the other videos and gotten a little bit of feel for what it is, there are certain stamps that are designed to be stamped on top of each other to give a textured or 3D look. And for lack of another term, I call them multi-step stamps. So whenever you have some kind of stamp set that is multi-stamp set, then it's always good to identify which ones are in your series or what the sequence is. I have numbered them on the right hand side of the screen so that it's easy for me to know which one of the images is going to go down first. The first stamp that I almost always use in a multi-step process is the solid image. That image is the one that's going to cover the most area on my cardstock, and so I generally use a second generation of ink, which means that I stamp off first, and whatever ink is left on my stamp, it's a lighter shade, and that is going to allow the other stamps that go after number 1 to be able to really be seen. This stamp set, as many others do, has a directional arrow so that you can tell which way to point the stamp or which way to rotate it. That is from the designer, and I'm really glad that Stampin' Up's designer put this little directional compass on the stamp for us to be able to tell where the highlights and the lowlights are intended to be on this particular flower. I've done number 1 and number 2 stamps so far, and I kind of stopped the process of going to number 3 because this particular image has a middle part to the flower. I don't know what it's called. I can't think of what it is, stamen, or somebody will correct me. So if I'm using the wrong term, then I apologize. This little piece in the middle of the flower is also a multi-step stamp. So I had 2 that I went down to the center of the flower. Now this is the stem of the flower, and it is also a multi-step. So the person that designed this stamp set really did a lot of work and a lot of planning on how the images would be displayed once they were completely stamped onto the paper. So what I'm doing is using the stem, and I'm waiting until the very, very last to do step number 3. And sometimes you're going to come across this in stamp sets, and sometimes it's not. I chose to make this card extremely simple with 1 flower because it would keep everything less complicated. And I think you'll understand that shortly by the time we get to stamp number 3. So once the leaves were put down on stamp number 1, and I did it the same way as I did the flower petals. I stamped off on stamp number 1. Stamp number 2 had more of highlights and lowlights. And then on the stem, there's only 2 steps. So I used the first step, and then I will follow up with the second step. Now I'm ready to go to step number 3 of all of the images, which is going to be a black outline. Oftentimes, whenever there's a multi-step stamp, you will finish off with an outline of what the image is. And this particular image I chose to do in black because I wanted it to have more of a finished look, and sometimes I can achieve that whenever I use black ink to do my stamping. The way the stamp set is designed is it's not going to be where number 3, the outline, fits directly over every single little bit of petal. It's going to be designed a little more loosely, and it kind of gives a little bit more of an artistic look, which I think is really cool, because then you can go crazy with the colors and the shades, and you can use these multi-step stamps for backgrounds. Imagine just using the solid image and then going and skipping number 2 step, and then going straight to the outline and having that as a piece of, to look like a piece of designer pattern paper. So I think that the possibilities with this type of stamp are really, really great. So in order to keep everything simple, for this flower image to really be able to be the focal point, I didn't really give a lot of thought into what to do to the rest of the card. So it's really funny that I think that sometimes an idea for a card just doesn't work out. I'm really happy with the stamping that I did on this card. However, I am more than unhappy with the rest of the card as a whole. And I even checked with my hubby and asked him, what do you think of this? And he was really hesitant to give me an honest answer, bless his heart. So I am aware that the rest of the card, other than the flower stamped image, is a disaster. And I left it and didn't reshoot the video because I think it is important for all of us to understand that not every single card that we make needs to be a #1 prize winner at the county fair. I really know, and as you all do, that sometimes card ideas are better in our heads than they are in paper. So, with that being said, what I did was I took some coordinating ribbon, and I just wanted to give some kind of a background to the card base, or to the, to what would show on the front of the card. And that's where I got the idea of just, putting something that would be a distraction for these layers of ribbon. And I did put it across the corner, which makes it almost impossible to get a completely clean corner unless you snip off the ribbon. So, disaster upon disaster. And I hope you guys are laughing with me. And, we see that we all, as crafters, come up with ideas that sometimes I just shake my head at what and say, what was I thinking? So this is a very simple way to put a card together, and you could use washi tape or you could use ribbon, but definitely maybe not this color combination and not this style, because I think it just doesn't work for me. But the stamped image is great. And getting back to how to do the multi-step stamping, you can use multi-step stamps in so many different ways. I think I will make a 4th video for this series and show how you can use the solid part of a multi-step stamp as pattern paper, because there's really, if you look at it, it's like turning a stamp backwards, and you can even make, it's like a brand new shape of a solid image, and you got another stamp that you didn't think of what the possibilities were before. So I hope you guys are trying out this multi-step stamp process, and that maybe you can look at your card making in a different way and get a little bit more out of your crafting supplies than what you initially thought you had. That's a really great feeling that I get out of discovering a new use for an existing craft supply. It's stretching your dollars just a little bit more, and can't we all use that in the nowadays? It's great. So I want to thank all of you guys for sticking with me with this series. This is number 3, and if you didn't get to catch the other ones, then we've got video number 1, which had 3-step stamping balloons. Video number 2, and it had pine cones in a Christmas card. This is number 3, and number 4 will be coming next week. So thanks for joining me today, and as always, I invite you over to my blog at jennystampsup.com. And on my blog, you will find a brand new card project idea every day. And while you're there, you can subscribe to my channel and you will get that blog update sent directly to your email. So at every morning, wake up and there's a brand new card idea. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next video.